The Trump campaign is at it again. They have filed their second voter suppression lawsuit of this cycle, and once again, they have targeted Nevada mail-in voting. Welcome back to Democracy Docket. I'm Mark Elias.
And I'm Paige Moskowitz. Let's get started. Mark, tell us about this new Trump lawsuit in Nevada.
Yeah, so Donald Trump has sicked his campaign on the people of Nevada in the second lawsuit of the cycle. This is a lawsuit that aims at ballots that are mailed by voters that come in a day or 2 days or 3 days after the election. They don't have postmarks because the Postal Service has not put postmarks. People think postmarks go on every piece of mail. It turns out that's not true anymore. I think they should be true, but it's not true. And so what Nevada says is that if a ballot comes in a day or 2 or 3 after the election and no postmark, we presume it was sent by the voter on election day or before, and we count it. And of course, Paige, we know that there is no aspect of voting by mail that Donald Trump will not put his lawyers in court to try to oppose.
So this new lawsuit is about trying to toss out mail-in ballots that are presumed to have been sent by election day and arrive shortly thereafter. But this sounds like deja vu because didn't they just file this same lawsuit basically a couple months ago?
Paige, have you not been paying attention to Democracy Docket? The Trump campaign is all about filing the lawsuit and another lawsuit and a third lawsuit and a fourth lawsuit. They all sort of seem to, target the same thing. And you're left asking yourself, is this like incompetence or is this a strategy? So look, in 2020, I think it was incompetence. This time, though, I think they are doing this on purpose. So yes, it is very similar to the lawsuit that they filed a few weeks ago in federal court. This lawsuit is in Nevada state court in Carson City, which is the capital of Nevada. The first lawsuit was filed in federal court. The first lawsuit targeted all vote by mail ballots received after election day, regardless of whether they bore a postmark or not. They just said no ballot that is received after election day can be counted, period. This targets a subset of that, which are these ballots, like I said, that come in after election day without postmarks. They do have overlapping aims, but I think rather than looking at that as incompetence, you should understand for what it is, which is a fundamental commitment to make it harder to vote and easier to cheat. They want to disenfranchise voters, and they want to disenfranchise people who vote by mail in particular. This has been their strategy, now going back to 2020. And so this is just further evidence that this is what they're up to.
We know that the GOP hates mail-in voting. That's not a surprise, but why file these lawsuits in Nevada?
Right. So Nevada is a swing state. And, people who look back at 2020 and they remember the attacks on our democracy, they tend to think, well, let's see, it was Georgia, right? We know that because that's where he was trying to find 11,000 votes. We know it was Arizona, all of the stuff with the crazy bamboo paper, Sharpie Gate, right? All of that nonsense. And of course, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, right? So people remember those 5 states. But the fact is there was a 6th state that Donald Trump was fixated with attacking, and that was Nevada. There were a series of lawsuits after the 2020 election in which Donald Trump and the Republican Party targeted Nevada. They brought litigation. Ultimately, there were an election contest that went all the way to the Nevada Supreme Court. So they were very committed to trying to overturn the results of a free and fair election in Nevada in 2020. And it is no surprise to me, they have not shrunk their battleground. They have broadened their battleground. Right now, he talks about, states like Minnesota, which is a pipe dream, but he talks about it. And so it may be a surprise to others, but it is not a surprise to me that Nevada, which has voted for Democrats for president now for the last several election cycles, Hillary Clinton won Nevada in 2016. Obviously, Barack Obama won Nevada before that, and Joe Biden won Nevada narrowly in 2020. It is a battleground state. It is a very close state. The polling is always very close there. And so it is not surprising to me that Donald Trump has picked Nevada for the first 2 lawsuits, and we need to take him both literally and seriously at what he's doing. And let me just say, Paige, if you want to understand what his strategy is in Nevada and elsewhere, you need to be a subscriber to Democracy Docket. You can click on the link below to subscribe for free to daily and weekly newsletters. You can also click on the link below if you want premium content, if you want more than the free content, to become a premium member. And I encourage you, to take advantage of these resources because it will help explain to you the context of not just where he's suing, but why.
Mike, the last time we talked about the federal lawsuit in Nevada, and you can click the link above to watch that video, you said that the federal lawsuit likely wasn't to succeed because they were making this really crazy argument about the U.S. Constitution. But what's the likelihood that this state level lawsuit could succeed?
So I actually think the chances of them succeeding in the state is as low or lower than they will succeed in the federal court. The Nevada Supreme Court is not by any stretch of the imagination a liberal court, but it's also not a conservative court. It is actually one of the most pragmatic courts in the country. And I've argued several cases there. My law firm has argued a lot of cases there. And I think that the chances that the state Supreme Court will throw out a bill that was passed by the Nevada legislature, and that's what this is, right? Just to be clear, this is not like progressives trying to extend some right. These were enactments by the legislature in Nevada. I'd be very surprised if you saw. I don't think the trial court will do it, but I'd be very surprised if the state Supreme Court threw out this election law. So I think this is further signaling to people in Nevada that Trump hates vote by mail, no matter what he may say in one video or another, or in some tweet or post on Truth Social. But I don't think this is going to succeed.
So these first two lawsuits from the Trump campaign and the RNC were attacking mail-in voting. But do you think that's the only thing they'll try to attack in courts before the election this fall?
No, of course not. Look, Donald Trump and the Republican Party are committed to making it harder to vote and easier to cheat. And until people who care about democracy internalize that, we are not going to understand. They are not going to appreciate what is in front of us. Okay. So the making it harder to vote is this kind of litigation, right? It is making it harder to vote by rejecting more ballots. It's making it harder to vote by, in other states, opposing drop boxes. It's making it harder to vote in other states by putting in place, extraneous restrictions on how you register to vote, right? So there's a whole body of litigation that we will see in Nevada and already seeing elsewhere that are targeting just making the voting process more cumbersome, more difficult, particularly targeting vote by mail, particularly targeting minority voters and young voters. Okay, that's one piece. But the second piece of this is making it easier for them to cheat. Now, Paige, if you go into the archives in Democracy Docket, you will see efforts in 2022 in some of the rural counties where more of these election deniers have purchase, trying to disrupt the counting process. I think we saw it in Nye County, Nevada, for example. We saw it in other places, though, and we're going to see litigation to try to make the administration of elections, including counting and certification, more difficult. In Nevada itself, we have already seen a lawsuit by one of these, allies of the Trump world, one of these anti-voting groups, to try to strike down a law that prohibits the intimidation and harassment of election officials. Now, you might be out there listening thinking, was Mark making this up? And there will be a link in the show notes and you can see it yourself. No. There was literally a lawsuit aimed at trying to strike down a law in Nevada that prohibits the intimidation and harassment of election officials. So there has already been these efforts targeting election administration, fair administration of elections, and the vote counting and certification process, and in the past, and we're going to see more of it, which is why everyone needs to be a subscriber to Democracy Docket. You will get every day a short email, and it's very short, it's very punchy. It'll tell you what's happening in these cases around the country, and then you'll get a weekly roundup and other free content.
So, Mark, it's early June. We're about 5 months from the election. The Trump campaign has filed 2 lawsuits so far. In your opinion, is that a lot of lawsuits? Is that lower than expected for a presidential campaign at this point in the cycle? Do you think at some point we should start seeing exponentially more lawsuits from the Trump campaign? What do you make of the pacing of all of these cases?
Yeah. So the first thing is people need to understand that when we talk about the Trump campaign and we talk about the RNC, we are talking about one entity. Okay. So the distinction between when Donald Trump sues versus when the RNC sued, or for that matter, when a state party sues, like Donald Trump has put his daughter-in-law in charge of the RNC. He fired Ronna McDaniel unceremoniously to put Mike Whatley in because he wanted someone who was going to be more aggressive in filing anti-voting litigation. So, I think that we need to understand that there are going to be some places where it is in the Trump campaign's name. There are some places where it's not in the Trump campaign's name. Also, Paige, they've talked pretty openly about the coordination efforts they have with various right-wing organizations that bring anti-voting litigation. They've in fact been co-plaintiffs with some anti-voting organizations. So I think we need to see this more holistically. And if you do that, one of the things that I am most excited about Democracy Docket is its case tracking. And it regularly will be putting out numbers that try to put this in perspective. So let me give you one number sort of today. In 2020, the last presidential election, there were roughly 84 lawsuits filed before Election Day that dealt with the voting process. Now, there were another 65 lawsuits filed after Election Day in which Donald Trump and his allies brought litigation. They lost 64 of them. I'm very proud of the work that my legal team and I did in representing President Biden and the DNC there. So there were 149 cases all combined, okay, but 84 before Election Day. We saw that number jump precipitously in 2022 to north of 170, right? So you saw a huge jump just between 2020 and 2022. And if you put a gun to my head and said, how many cases will there be in 2020? I'd say there'll be someplace between 250 and 275. So you're going to again see that number jump significantly. But in the coming weeks and months, Democracy Docket will regularly be reporting on kind of what are the trends. And Paige, I have to compliment you. The work you guys do on the case tracking and the annual reports you put out and the reports you put out interim, I think really do help frame and give context to this.
A cornerstone of our work at Democracy Docket is tracking these cases, reporting out on them consistently. Because, Mark, as we say, democracy is on the docket. You cannot understand what the fight for voting rights is looking like if you're not paying attention to the courts, because so many of these fights are playing out in a courtroom. To give you an example, right now it is June 5th. There are 58 lawsuits filed so far this year that could impact how people vote this November. Those are 58 cases that maybe you as an individual don't have capacity to pay attention to. We do, and we'll tell you what's happening in those cases. We'll tell you exactly how it will impact your right to vote, what to expect when you show up to cast your ballot. These cases are going to be the difference between someone being able to vote or not this fall.
Thank you so much for watching. Find out more about this lawsuit and every episode. I ask you to subscribe to our free daily and weekly newsletters. This week, I have one additional ask. We are on the precipice of 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. Please become one of them.